So let's talk today about why I'm doing something in the theater. Um, I've had at least one person, if not more people, ask me why theater. And I think this is a perfect time in doing an adaptation that has been in almost every medium to talk about medium itself, to talk about why I'm choosing this. Um, First, I don't think theater is dying. I think Broadway needs to be renovated quite a bit. I think we're at the point where new stuff that's off Broadway, that is original work, is a lot more interesting than a lot of the rehashed stuff that is currently on Broadway. So within the medium of theater, of musical theater, there's a lot more interesting stuff in the community that happens. I think anyone that says theater is dead potentially doesn't go to stuff during the year, but theater is some of the most well-attended things I've seen. And there's a lot of stuff that is theater that people don't even know. People that go to see a WWE wrestling match, that they still call it that, are going to see a theater. So it's not traditional theater. There's also protest theater. There's guerrilla theater. Drag shows have a lot of theatrical elements to them, if not outright theater itself. So theater is not dying. That's the first thing. I think people like to think that because they point to Broadway or they point to the West End and go, well, we've seen all this. This is just repackaged. Yes, Broadway does every now and then need an injection of new stuff that is not just rehashing. The rehashing is easy. It means they know they'll get butts in the seats. New York is an expensive place to live. I do not begrudge them. Sometimes it works really well. Sometimes it doesn't. It's neither here nor there. But what does your different medium afford you? I think is the first thing to consider. So I talk about this a lot in Everything is Gay and the Straight Stuff when we talk about like TV versus film, especially. And I talk about the concept of medium as one, intimacy, and two, familiarity with your audience. And what I really mean by that is the intimacy is how close are you with someone? This is something that we see a lot of, specifically in the age of YouTube, which you're watching this on probably. Um, YouTube becomes something familiar, but it also has sort of a standard size. It's not really larger than life. It's not even life size a lot of the time. It happens on a screen, like I have in a laptop, and it's a finite place. Um, you don't really, even stuff you really get into, like I think there was the Elizabeth Bennet Diaries, is something I'm thinking about potentially. It's a different experience for you as an audience member than it is seeing Bridgerton or seeing Pride and Prejudice in IMAX, for instance. The idea of intimacy is how much do you feel like you're involved? How much do you feel like you know the people? How much do you identify with them? And this intimacy is something that a lot of abstract theater and a lot of abstract stuff, and even sometimes horror movies, tends to examine or exploit. This intimacy is really what it comes down to in choosing what medium. Cinderella has been adapted into almost every medium that I can think of and more. But there's a difference between reading a graphic novel that is about Cinderella, or in the case of Beauty and the Beast, Be Sleep, versus seeing an animated film, which will be more fantastical and you're more aware you're seeing a movie, versus like a video game where like the Wolf Among Us video games where it's the fairy tale creatures in New York a la Once Upon a Time. It's different, right? Like when you really think about it, seeing a TV show either serialized or as a one shot, like as a telecast, versus seeing a film on a big screen, it's different. Seeing something in your backyard on a projector versus seeing it inside in your home, it's different. And this has to do a lot with this intimacy. And this is something that you have to ask yourself in creation is why am I choosing this medium? What is this level of intimacy afford? Whether it's, drawbacks, whether it's strengths. One strength of the Cinderella story in theater is that it allows for costume changes to happen on stage, which is something the Rodgers and Hammerstein traveling cast is really good at. I actually sat purposely on a side to watch it once to watch how they brought the fairy godmother in. And it was incredible to see how she was hooked up, how she moved on the stage, looked like she was floating. It was really cool to see kind of the back process because that's the sort of thing I enjoy. Um, Phantom of the Opera is a show that works better almost as a stage musical than it does as a film. Because you would think as a film, having a solid location that you could show more of works in its favor. But something about the finite space in a theater and how big and grand a theater even is, it's still a finite space. The economy of space and how the Phantom pops up, where he's going to pop up, what he does, and how what he does interacts with the audience. I think Phantom is a better show as a stage show. I think that economy of space serves it. I think that juxtaposition of intimacy, real life people versus the grandness of the ancient opera house, I think it works better on a stage, personally. And that's something that I consider. So the next time you watch something, I want you to consider kind of how you feel as an audience member. And then if you're a creator, what do you think the creator was doing having something as this level of intimacy? Like, what is it? What is the difference watching a movie at home versus in a theater? What is it when it's on a serialized Netflix that you can binge? What is it when it's appointment cable TV where you can't binge it? And you can think about that. And it's something that we are wrestling with, specifically because Netflix, and streaming services has decided 22 episode seasons are out and everyone wants 8 1-hour episodes. So basically 8 mini movies instead of a traditional season. And this was an arbitrary decision they made. The people kind of grow accustomed to, but then there's no excitement, there's no appointment television, the intimacy changes. If you watch all 8 episodes of something in a day and then you're done and you're exhausted, that's different than seeing something week to week. There's something finite about theater in that way. Even if you go to see the same show 7 nights a week in a week, it's going to be a little different each time because the people performing, who are real human beings, not robots, might not be able to hit the note one night, might add a little flourish another night. There might be something backstage that breaks, so they have to have a secondary prop that changes a little bit of the tone of the scene. There's something about theater that is more alive than other forms of entertainment. Not casting judgment, of course, but there's something about that aliveness, the humanness of it, the imperfection of it that makes it different than a finite graphic novel, even if the graphic novel allows you to be more fantastic. This is something that when every movie comes with CGI and you start relying on like CGI and perfection and smoothness and fantastical made into realism, you sort of lose the things that you can do. You sort of lose the idea of spontaneity, you kind of lose the humanity a bit in your work. And I think this is what we start to see with the Marvel stuff, is that not only are we now exhausted by Marvel superheroes, but they just don't have the same impact they used to. Because when everything is CGI, you lose the human in it. And that's not something you see really on stage as much. There is stuff that is now doing more with virtual reality. There are more shows that are purposely doing things interactive. And that's something to think about, is you're going to a theatrical performance, or if you are creating the theatrical performance, that level of intimacy is something more or less within your control. You can't count for the little things, but you can decide, do you want your audience to be lying in hammocks looking at something? Do you want the scene from The Wizard of Oz where they're at the weird magical burlesque shop, the Wicked, sorry. And that's something to think about when you think about media. Like Cobblestone Kingdom as this serialized, animated, or live action Netflix series would be longer, would be bigger. The characters would potentially be more fleshed out. Maybe people would want to get to know the villains more or hear more about the backstory. It becomes bigger, it's less finite, and that's not bad. I don't know how much more depth of field would serve this particular play, though. There are certain beats people expect from Cinderella, and I'm giving most of those beats in one form or another. So the question is, what purpose would it serve to do it in another medium? What purpose does it serve to do it as a film, for instance? Uh, what does the camera as an eye capturing the experience give that the stage does not? And if I don't have a good answer for this medium is better, then why not do it as theater? Why not have that imperfect, fragile human existence really be on display? Um, Purposefully choosing Cobblestone Kingdom to be in theater also has to do with the fact that I want it to seem a little artificial. I don't want it to be this perfect on location shoot. I want you to know that even though you're looking at like a forest, this is a forest that is a projection or is a painted set. I want to give you a bit of that vintage feel that both the stage show and the telecast of Cinderella had. I think there's something very special about I'm going to watch a play. I'm going to see this thing. I'm going to lose myself a bit in the music, but I'm always going to kind of know where I am. I think it's really cool to choose that. Immersion would work too. I can make an immersion where you're watching it happen while you're at the ball. Like, and that's a different version of Cobblestone Kingdom. And it's not bad, but it's not necessarily the story I want to tell. There might be someone else's version of Cinderella is it is a dance party, you come in costume and Cinderella happens around you. You know, it's murder mystery dinner theater, more theater. And that's okay. That's fine. That's a different level of intimacy. It still has that kind of theatrical human ability to it. Um, I'm kind of boosting the artifice here. I want that fakeness, that artificiality, that thing in theater where we are going to see a play to be present. There's a bit of vaudeville to what I do here, so there's going to be some opportunities for call and response. I have a couple characters specifically where I'll need to cast someone comfortable with or willing to try improv. Um, and that's something that I've considered is okay, so I'm doing something that's very much about theater as intimacy, expected theater. You know, you're getting kind of what it says on the tin. How do I mess with that a little bit? And so a little bit I'm messing with it is I'm acknowledging what we call that fourth wall. I'm acknowledging the fact there is sort of this proscenium thing that we think of in theater. I'm acknowledging that you are voyeuring in on this experience. And I'm very excited to see how that turns out. And remember that I've said this is a much larger play than what it should be for the amount because when you think about it, normally on at least a film script, I can't remember if it's a one for play, but on a film script, one page of the script is 1 minute. And even with that white space, that 1 minute can turn into 2 minutes. And so it is currently a bigger show than what most people would tolerate. Stuff is going to get cut, maybe even stuff I like, and I won't know until I start the process in a couple of weeks. But I'm pretty excited to take this kind of big show and make it something that people can enjoy, absorb, have familiarity with, have that intimacy. I kind of like the idea that, you know, my characters are singing a fun song and then they hear like a rapper and they have to decide if they're going to like embrace the fact someone is opening candy and like kind of call them out a little bit or like stop to listen in, or if they want to ignore it. I like that human element mixed with the artifice, and I'm intrigued by what's going to happen with it. Um, so for me, in choosing theater for Cobblestone Kingdom, specifically choosing to do this sort of old school, definitely artifice, definitely where, you know, having a show, Judy Garland, Mickey Rooney in a barn sort of thing. Um, I think it's a really nice familiar thing. And I think it's something that theater has sort of both embraced and sort of eschewed as this much older thing. But guess what? When people go to see the Cinderella story as a pantomime in the West End at Christmas time, they know they're going to see a show. Like all you people that are like theater is dead during Christmas time, when you go to see the Nutcracker, you want to guess what you're watching? You're watching theater. You're watching artifice that isn't really about intimacy. You're watching something familiar you've seen because there's nostalgia for it. Um, you're watching people in specific costumes that are supposed to give you sort of a specific idea of who they are, or perhaps an emotion um, based on color or how light hits the costume. I'm just telling you, there's so many elements about theater that really are about the intimacy of storytelling with the audience and about having that experience together. Like, it's not an inactive choice. It was a very active choice to choose this sort of, this is the intimacy, this is the finiteness of the space, this is the artifice of it. I chose it because there was something I liked old school. Now, I'm not saying I never want Cobblestone Kingdom to be anything but a stage musical. If somebody really responds to it and wants to do $3 million to make a movie, I'm not going to say no. But I would be curious to see what the artifice would look like translated to film because I wouldn't want to lose that shallowness in field. You know, it's great to be able to have things happen in a house, but purposely, I want this forest kingdom to have the forest be almost omnipresent. You know, I'm going to talk about this probably in setting or maybe in setting up location. It's actually really important to me that you always feel where you are, even if you know it's like an artificial feeling. And I don't know how that's going to work. I'm excited to find out. I think for me, the important thing is that people know they are coming to a play. Um, Other stuff I do is much closer to TV or to film or to graphic novel or, murder mystery dinner theater. This specifically is meant to really start out this way as this very artificial. You are seeing the two dude version of Cinderella or the two sapphire version of Cinderella. Um, because it's not something that really exists. Because we've made all these different adaptations of Cinderella, but it's always so incredibly heteronormative. And I just can't think, because there's nothing in this story that really stops this from being same gender admiration, same gender desire. And I'm looking forward to peeling back the layer of this. And it's something I've worked on, and it's something that you really do have to work on with the Cinderella type character, not just because of how she's written, but because of how she's portrayed, all the things that people think that Cinderella is. And it's an exciting thing to work on. I'm excited by this project. I'm excited by kind of the charge of I am showing you the artifice and I am very comfortable in artifice for this play. I'm comfortable that the intimacy level isn't necessarily what you are expecting, that there's immersion, but it may not be in the way that you expect it to be. I'm pretty comfortable with the thing that I'm creating. And I can't wait for people to come alongside. I'm getting very close to school, so I'm getting very close to start making those phone calls and sending those emails. Um, but today, I guess for the diary, if you want a challenge, think about the thing that you watch next. Think about the thing you're excited about for the holiday. Here's a question. Is a haunted house with scare actors interactive theater? If it's not, what kind of medium is it? For those of you that don't know, medium is the thing you're imbibing. So a book is a medium versus a graphic novel, comic book, which is sort of a different medium because visual, versus theater, versus film, versus TV, versus YouTube. But these mediums are really about intimacy. So think about it. Going door to door as a caroler. You have an audience, you have people that create themselves as others as carolers. Is that theater? Um, think about it the next time you see a movie. How does it really affect you? both as a moviegoer and as a creator. How does it feel to have characters where you see their face and their face is 5 miles tall, sort of thing, versus watching something from the comfort of your own home? You can even take the same thing. You can see Barbie in theater and then see Barbie on DVD and really consider how does it change the impact of the message, the film, the style? Does it change it? Does it make it better to do it at home? Does it make it better to do it with a dozen of your closest friends? Because that's part of the intimacy, is how many people are seeing this thing, how many people are having the same experience with you. Mostly, about 80%. 20% will be personalized, but 80% of it will be very similar. Um, so that's really the thing, is that I actively chose most of the stuff I choose to do. I choose to start as playwriting. This feels like a play. I'm specifically making this to be a play, and then anything else that comes out of it might be a bonus, but that there might be some tussles because it's not really meant to be real. Um, and that's something I'm very excited to bring to theater again in some work. Some of my work is very real, but this has a bit more of an artifice, not quite abstract, but definitely you're seeing a show sort of thing. It's very exciting. So that's my diary and my challenge for this week. And I hope you have a fabulous week. And we'll see you next time. I don't know what I'm talking about next time, but for this week, think about what you watch, what you observe, what really calls to you, and the intimacy level that affords to you, even if the intimacy is your own imagination, which is what happens when you read a book. You make a movie in your brain, and that's perfectly fine. Anyways, I'll see you next week. Good night.